Good morning and welcome to Quiet Additions. This is Sharon Peterson, and I thought I'd talk to you today about my little experiments comparing grow bags versus pots or 5-gallon buckets. So the pots and the 5-gallon buckets I kind of bunched together because they're basically a plastic pot. One, you just have to drill holes in the bottom for 5-gallon buckets, and then it's almost the same thing. The grow bags are just, they're simply a fabric bag, and there's different types of fabric that you can get. I will put links to below to the two that I purchased. I liked them both. Both of them seem to work, I would say, comparably. But yeah, grow bags versus pots or 5-gallon buckets. So there's two things you need to keep in mind, and we're going to talk about the watering needs and then how it affects the root system of the plant. So first, watering. Grow bags definitely need to be watered more often. And so if it's something you want to be able to just put out and not have to worry about too much, you might want to consider a pot instead. It's going to hold water better. It depends on your situation though, because there might be situations where you get too much water and you want something that's going to drain better. And so just keep that in mind. The plastic of either the 5-gallon bucket or a pot holds more water than a grow bag will. I found my grow bags were drying out, and I had to remember to get out here and check them. Even though the rest of the garden I wasn't worried about, the grow bags I had to make sure that I get them watered. With the plastic pots, or especially with 5-gallon buckets, just make sure there's sufficient drainage so that it doesn't hold too much water and end up rotting the roots of your plant. So that's not a good thing, obviously. And then the second thing is the root system of the plant. This is the big thing that I have read that might be an issue with pots versus grow bags. Grow bags, the roots are going to grow out to the edge of the bag. It's going to hit that air basically, because remember it's just cloth, and then it just stops and the plant knows to grow new roots. And so apparently it helps the plant to grow a really hardy root system because it just gets a lot of roots in there, but it doesn't get root bound because it's all spread out. Whereas with a plastic pot or with a 5-gallon bucket, those roots will hit the edge of the bucket or the plastic, and it'll keep growing. It'll just start growing around and around, and that's where you end up with root-bound plants. I have not had an issue with that, and I will show you here in a minute, but this tomato plant here is actually in a big nursery pot, and then I've got another one planted behind me over here in a 5-gallon bucket. I wasn't sure how they do because these are indeterminate tomatoes. They're really big, but so far so good. I haven't seen any issues. I'm not ready to dump them out of the bucket yet and actually look at the roots. So it'll be interesting at the end of the season. I'm going to do that. Pull them out and just see what the roots did. Root systems just depends on the type of plant that you put in your container. Keep in mind you don't want to get something too big because the root system is going to be too big and it won't work for the container. That's the two things. So let me zoom in here on a couple of these things, and I'll just show you some examples of what I've got growing. I did a variety of things just to kind of test things out, and I'll show you what I got. So let's first look at this nursery pot. This nursery pot is one that we purchased some fruit, I think it was apple trees. Yeah, it was apple trees in these pots, and of course I just saved the pots and recycled them. This is a indeterminate, it's a black cherry tomato, and it is doing fantastic. It's huge. Here, let me scroll up and you can see. It's way taller than me. In fact, it's outgrowing my little teepee that I made. But it's huge. It's doing great. These pots are nice because they have the drainage already built into them. I would say it's slightly smaller than a 5-gallon bucket, but it's close. And this is working great for this tomato. And there's another tomato. It's a different type of tomato, so it's not quite as big. But that is a 5-gallon bucket. So this tomato is growing in this 5-gallon bucket. It's a different type of tomato, so it's not quite as big as the other one, but it's doing fantastic also. I have holes drilled into the bottom of this bucket, and it's just sitting on the ground. This is a pumpkin that's growing around it. But yeah, this is doing fine, and I'm having no issues. So this is a grow bag, and let me move it out here so you can see it better. This grow bag has mint growing in it, which for me, this is a perfect place to put my mint. Mint is one of those things that if you just plant it in the ground, it takes off and it can go crazy and kind of take over things. It's hard to get rid of it. By putting it in my grow bag, I'm controlling it and I'm controlling those roots, and so it just contains everything. And so this is a place where I really like a container, whether it's a grow bag or I have another mint plant that's in a pot. Both of them are doing great. I'm not having any issues. I don't really notice a big difference in the two plants. Mint, any kind of plant that you really want to contain and not allow to grow out into your garden, containers are a really good idea for that. One thing I forgot to mention is, did you notice how I was able to pull this out pretty easily? Grow bags have handles on them, which makes it really nice to move around. And that's just another good pro for just containers in general. You can move them around, put them where you want, adjust as you need to. A lot of these grow bags and containers I'm going to repurpose this winter in my greenhouse and grow some cold weather crops in there. So I pulled this other grow bag over here. I grew potatoes in containers this year also. It's another good way to use containers. I haven't harvested them, and so I'm curious to see what's going to be happening down in there. But potatoes is another thing. If I wanted to, I could even just cut these plants off and just store this whole container in a place where it's not going to freeze, but it could be very cold, and those potatoes will stay fresh all winter long. So that's another good option. My potatoes, I had blight and we had flea beetles, which is a new pest to me, and so it's looking a little scraggly, but we'll see if we get any potatoes in there. So I have another container over here that I wanted to show you. This was a case of something that I should not have put in my grow bags. These are some black-eyed Susans, which I love, but they are way overgrown for this grow bag. I have two of them, one back here and then one right here. So this is a case of a plant that I should not have put in a container, with be it grow bag or buckets or pots. This black-eyed Susan is just too big, it's flopping over. They definitely needed to go in the ground. So this is a case of be aware of your plant, how big it's going to get. I didn't think they'd get this big, and just decide whether a container is going to even be appropriate. So there you have it. With grow bags or containers, you need to think about the watering needs and what it's going to do with the health of the plant itself. So remember to get a plant that is going to fit the size of your container or grow bag, either way. I have had no issues using buckets, no issues with anything seeming root bound, but that's something that is often mentioned when I hear pros for the grow bag. So I don't know if it's really an issue or if it's just something that people want to get you to buy a grow bag. I decided that my preference is buckets or pots. The grow bags, I just had to worry about getting them watered too often. I would figure, you know, it rained and everything was fine in my garden, but I would forget, oh yeah, I got to check those grow bags because they dry out too soon. And so, especially if you live in a dry climate, like I used to live in Colorado, and grow bags, personally, I don't think they would work at all there. If you're in an area where you get more rain, then you could consider grow bags, but still need to check them for water. If you have like a patio where you want to put flowers out, or even, you know, vegetables, peppers, grow bags would probably work because they're right there and you're going to check them often. So my personal preference is I prefer the buckets and the pots. I didn't want to have to check those grow bags. Now I'm not going to be throwing them away. I'll be using them. In fact, I'm going to repurpose them for my greenhouse this winter for some cold, hardy crops. So maybe I'll do another video and let you know how they go with that. Check the article that I have in the link below. I've got a lot more information, more details on, you know, comparing the two. I have links to the grow bags that I used. Both of them I really liked. They seem sturdy. I think they're going to last, you know, equally, but I have two different types that I purchased. And so check those out. And I think that's it. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you in the next video. Bye.